Welcome to Mariposa Rising. I'm Dr. Charissa D Pizarro, an Afro-Latina clinical psychologist, CEO, and nonprofit founder. This is where mental health, culture, and power intersect. We examine how power operates in systems, culture, and within ourselves, and how transformation begins when we reclaim our voice. This is Mariposa Rising, where healing is power. The information shared on this podcast is for educational purposes only, and it is not a substitute for therapy. Welcome back to the podcast. What if certain aspects of your personality, or what you thought was your personality, is actually not a part of your personality at all? What if being the strong one, what if being the responsible one, the independent one, the people pleaser, underscore the people pleaser, the perfectionist, what if that's actually not a part of who you were originally meant to be? Sometimes that's how survival strategies show up, as we didn't delve into, but we spoke a little bit about in one of the previous episodes. Today, I want to ask one big question. Who are you without your survival strategies? So when we're born, we're babies, we grow up a little bit, we become toddlers, we become older children. Children don't grow up learning to be hypervigilant. They're not born that way, they are molded that way. Because something happened or something along the way made them realize that being hypervigilant kept them safe. And this is what we learn even with trauma in adulthood. How to stay safe, usually or oftentimes, especially for women, especially for Latinas, being the smart one, the overachiever, first gen for so many of us. So let me bring in a really good example. And this one wasn't just for a particular person or a particular family, but it was impressed upon so much that it became part of a whole culture. So I have spoken to you about, probably more than once, because this is my life's work. We are originally from the Dominican Republic, and from 1930 to 1961, there was a dictatorship known as the era of Trujillo. Trujillo, like so many other dictators, was relentless. He needed what he wanted done yesterday, and he liked certain things. So one of the beaches was made like they fixed the sand so it wouldn't be deep. This could just be a myth, a legend that. So he made this beach into his private, backyard pool. Something else that he really liked was cleanliness. So he had guards go into each and everyone's home and check that their home was clean. Now, I don't know if you're familiar with the Dominican culture. I'm not going to say every single one, but Dominicans could be a little excessive with their cleaning. And this dates back to survival during the dictatorship, because if people's houses were not clean or clean to the standards of the dictator, then they could be jailed, they could be fined, they could even be killed. A lot of them were tortured. There was nothing that would stop this man from getting what he wanted, including keeping the house clean. I mean, there were a lot of other requirements, like there had to be a portrait of him in the family's living room or wherever it was that they prayed. There were many others, but something that might sound as silly as cleaning became a survival strategy for so many Dominicans of that era, and it got passed down generation to generation until present day, even though the dictatorship was like 50 years ago, or probably more. So that's just one example. One example, extreme, but an example nonetheless. Now let's be a little more subtle, right? Maybe you feel guilty when you rest because you should be cleaning. That was actually me. Like, taking a nap during the day? No way, not unless the house was spotless. Maybe you apologize for things when they're not your fault, and you have nothing to do with them, but you take ownership and accountability. Maybe sometimes people could even text you and your stomach could turn and you could get nauseous, but you still feel the need to reply. Or maybe somebody asks you to do something that you prefer not to do, and even though your body's telling you not to, you still say yes, because you don't know how to say no. Maybe when you walk into the room, you have inherently learned to see people's moods and adjust your mood accordingly and adjust your behavior accordingly. Maybe you learn to never ask for help, that you can do anything on your own. Not that doing everything on your own, there's anything wrong with that, but there is an extreme where it could be a detriment to you. Maybe compliments make you feel uncomfortable. Maybe if somebody says good job, you can't take that in. Maybe everyone admires you because you're the independent one, the quote-unquote strong one, but no one asks you how you felt about that or what you went through, because you coped with it so well, apparently, that people didn't feel the need to ask. If you have nodded your head for any of these, or some more than one, or maybe all of them, you're definitely not alone. But guess what? I'm not describing your personality, I am describing survival strategies. Imagine growing up close by to train tracks. So at the beginning, maybe you couldn't fall asleep if the train passed because it was too loud. But with time, guess what? You don't even hear it anymore because you get used to it. You get accustomed to it. You might have a sleepover and your friends might say, how in the world can you sleep at night with all that noise? And you're like, what noise? And you even forgot that the train passes by. And that is how we become accustomed to things that can be very detrimental to us, but that's how we also learn to cope with them. And we feel better coping with them because they become familiar. It becomes part of what we do. It could become habitual. So survival tells us this is how you are. You're anxious, you're controlling, you're independent, you're difficult, quote unquote. You're an overthinker, you're a workaholic, you're a perfectionist. That's a lot of us out there. But healing begins when we stop asking, what's wrong with me? And you start instead asking yourself, not what's wrong with me, but what happened to me that I am like this? What did I learn that taught me that I need to act in fill in the blank, whatever way it is that you're presenting us? Oftentimes it's a combination of all the things I mentioned and then some. And in terms of relationships, have you noticed that you might think that certain people are boring, people with certain personalities? And then all of a sudden, emotionally unavailable people seem exciting. That's not because chaos is attractive. That might be more because of what you've been through and what is familiar to you. Many people might mistake a little bit of anxiety, like, oh, your heart jumps, as chemistry. And healthy people, healthy love feels boring. You learn to never have that silence, that quiet, that stability. Some clients tell me all the time, I don't need anyone. A lot of times they even sound proud of it. But then I wonder to myself, who taught you that needing people isn't safe? Hyper-independence isn't confidence, it's protection. So take a minute, slow down. Imagine waking up tomorrow and nobody expects anything from you. Nobody needs fixing, nobody needs rescuing. Who would you be? What would you enjoy? What would make you laugh? What would you wear? What dream would you finally choose to pursue? What parts of yourself will be waiting? What an exciting discovery that could be. After years of sitting across from people in therapy, I see that people don't usually ask, who am I? But they come in with something that's bothering them and they instead ask, why am I anxious? Why can't I relax? Why am I depressed? Why do I sabotage my relationships? Why do I keep choosing emotionally unavailable partners? Why do I feel guilty? Fill in the blank. People feel guilty over all sorts of things tied to previous survival mechanisms. All these different questions, though, are tied to the very similar answer. They're asking, who am I underneath? Who am I without survival? Every morning this week, before you make your first choice of the day, ask yourself, am I making this choice for survival or from freedom? Your survival self had one job, to stay safe. Your healing self has a different mission, to live fully. And don't get me wrong, healing isn't about becoming somebody new. Healing is remembering the person you were before survival kicked in. The butterfly doesn't emerge as something different. It emerges and becomes free of what was restricting it. So if this resonates with you, share it, write in the comments, follow us, and I'll see you next time.